Hi everybody, Hannah here. Welcome back to my channel for another video, and in today's video I am talking about little man's birth story and everything that had gone on the day that he was born. So yeah, if you are new, a bit of background. Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a stay-at-home mum to 4 girls, and this little man here, who is our only boy, and being number 5, he is just doted upon and completely mothered by his sisters. So yes, let me just jump straight in to telling you all about the day he was born. Azrael here was born on the 27th of December, and he was due, but according to the hospital, he was due on Christmas Day. However, when we went for our private scan, when we first found out that we were pregnant with him, the people at the private scan told us that his due date was actually going to be the 27th of December, and that is when he was born. He was born on the 27th of December. So yeah, hospital were a few days off, but the private company got it right, didn't it? Ooh. I think you want some food, don't you? Which I'm actually really thankful for when he came. We managed to get Christmas Day and Boxing Day done. They were nice, chill days. They ended up being wonderful days with family, and it was absolutely perfect. And then on the 27th, the day was just like any other day, pretty much. It was just a very mundane day. I had been getting the odd pain now and then for a few days beforehand. However, I didn't think much of it at all. It was just more like a period cramp than anything else. They weren't overly painful, they didn't overly last, and they were probably just Braxton Hicks, or they could have been very slow labour to the start of it. I couldn't tell you which. And it was the same thing that had been happening on the 27th. I hadn't had many, if any, pains for the majority of the day, and they weren't intense, they weren't painful, they weren't anything. They were just like, oh, my body's doing a thing again. So yes, and I did plan on vlogging and actually recording his birth, as I had a home birth. I did have my home birth, which I was so thankful for, especially considering how fast it all happened, because I had the first proper contraction that was very painful, that I couldn't talk through, and all of the cliche classical signs that it's an actual contraction at 4:10 in the afternoon of the 27th. And from then, things picked up very quickly. I kept getting intense pains every about 45 minutes. The first gap was 45 minutes, give or take, I think. And then the next gap was about half an hour, and they stayed at about half an hour for about 3 contractions, so an hour and a half. At the first contraction, Glenn, my husband, was still at work, and he was finishing work at 5 o'clock. I think he was finishing that day. Yeah. And I was just like, he'll be home soon enough. If they get any faster within that time gap, then I would have called him to say, you need to come home sooner. But because he was so close to coming home anyway, I didn't call him. I did, however, give him a message saying, I hope you are getting out of work on time. To which his response was, yes I am, I'm now on my way home, which was brilliant. So I didn't say anything else in regards to that, because I didn't want him being unsafe riding his bicycle on the way home. So I just let him come home, and by the time he came home at 5:30, yeah, I'd had about 3 very ow contractions by that point, and I was still looking after my 4 girls. I had had my 4 girls by myself at home. They were being so very well behaved. I honestly can't tell you what we did now. I probably did have the television on as background noise to try and help them as well. But all 4 of my girls were very well behaved, which I'm very, very thankful for. And then he came home while I was cooking dinner. And yeah, and then I told him that things had been happening and that I'd written the times down of when they had happened on my phone and all of this. And he was just like, well, you could have called me. And I was like, I know, but you'd have just been at home twiddling your thumbs. And that wouldn't really have been productive to him or to me. As when I was pregnant with Allana and when I was in labour for Allana, Glenn did go to work for a few hours because he was the only manager on the opening shift. So he went into work to open work up and then came home after a few hours. But because of how that labour went, he ended up being rather bored, bless him. And then he built a trampoline for Elena's labour, which I very much remember. So I was like, there was nothing that you could do and things like that. So he was just like, yeah, okay, that's fair. And then he just helped with the kids and helped keep an eye on me. And then it got to... So the kids had dinner. They then played and they got themselves ready for bed. Me and my husband put the twins to bed at 7 o'clock, which is their normal bedtime. And then from that then next hour is when things started getting very intense, a lot faster. I had a contraction while I was putting the twins to bed, so I just ended up sitting on their floor for an extra few minutes while putting them to bed, which obviously they're under 2. They didn't even notice. They just would like, oh, Mum's still in the room with us for a bit longer. And then I closed the door, put them to bed, and they went off to bed, no problems whatsoever. I came downstairs to the living room, which is where I was planning to have my son, which is where he was born. And at 7:10, my husband called the home birth midwife team to say that things are happening. You might want to see if you can get someone to come round, as her contractions are getting closer together and they come hard and fast when things properly kick in. To which they said, yes, okay, we'll call the midwife and she'll give you a call back. Which she did about 5-10 minutes later, I want to say. She called back saying that she was about half an hour to 45 minutes away, but that she would head straight here and to get here and things like that. So, yep, we knew the midwife was on their way and that things were slowly progressing. He's milk drunk now, bless him. That I then had my next contraction at about 7:30, I want to say, give or take. And it was an hour one. It really was. At that point, he then called the home birthing team back saying, right, if you've only got one midwife on their way, you might want to send the other one as well. And all of this. Then they said, yeah, okay, we'll find out what's going on. And that first midwife called him back again and said, yes, I am on my way. What's happening with her? And then he was just like, yeah, they are getting a lot more intense. So if you've got your partner with you also, and she's like, I don't, it is just me on my way. And he was like, you might want to give her a call then to see if she can start getting here as well. And she was like, okay, we'll see how things happen and all of this. So yeah, I did have, I think, one more contraction within the time before the midwife came. And it was, again, it was a really painful one. It was getting to the point where I was super, super uncomfy. It was getting to the point where I was in constant pain. Where it was, but I was in a constant level of pain, as if it was one very, very long contraction with just then extra peaks within the contraction itself, as to when, like, my muscles, I think, were contracting and actually having a contraction. So yes, Whew, I was walking around the living room, trying to get comfy, trying to be comfortable. It wasn't working. Sitting down wasn't comfortable. Being on my hands and knees was comfortable. And it got to about 8 o'clock and I was having a major hot flush. And at this point I had taken all of my clothes off. I was physically that hot, that sweaty. I could not stand having any clothes on me. So I was literally taking all my clothes off. And again, still just trying to get comfortable. I had managed to put a shower curtain down over my living room floor, which I was super thankful for. However, Glenn came down from putting Allana to bed at 7:30 to see me doing this, and he was like, babe, I'm here, let me do this. And I was like, yes, but you are being helpful putting Allana to bed, which I can't do. I live in a 3-storey house and I was not going to be able to go up to the top floor where both Adie and Allana, our 2 eldest girls, sleep, to help put her to bed. So he was putting the older 2 to bed, sorting them out up there, and I was like, that's fine, he can do that, I can do this. And I did just manage to put that shower curtain down, though I'm not going to lie, trying to do that while I could barely move was a bit challenging. I couldn't bend down, so most of that got done with my feet. So yeah, and then from all of this, again, I was pretty much just like kind of rolling around on the floor. I was very undignified at this point. I wasn't screaming with pain, but it was that I was really just like grunting, and oh yeah, I repeat, I wasn't very dignified, but childbirth isn't dignified. So yes. Hi. The midwife showed up at about 8 o'clock, I want to say, or between 8 and 10 past 8 is when the midwife came. And from that point, everything happened very, very fast from that point. We sorted out all of the used towels that we'd got. One of my sisters had found a bag in a charity shop of just clean towels. They were just really old and rather grubby. So she bought them for us that we could then just use and throw away, which I'm very, very thankful for. Looking back, I'm so grateful that she did that for us. So Glenn went and got that bag and we started sorting things out. And then the midwife asked me if I'd be able to sit on my bum, and I perched myself in the corner of my sofa. We have a corner L sofa. So I'd curled up in the corner of that sofa for her to then check me and see how many centimetres dilated I was. And I was 9 centimetres dilated when she checked me. And I was like, wow, okay, that would explain why I feel like this, and just how intense everything was. And she was checking Mister's heartbeat, and she was like, do you think you could move back onto your hands and knees, because he doesn't like how you are. His heart rate was a little bit elevated, a bit more than she'd want for me being sat on my bum in the corner for how she'd asked me to be. But so I moved. I ended up being on my hands on the sofa, and then obviously my knees on the floor and things. And yeah, again, it was just constant pain through all of it. I didn't have any gas and air. She hadn't brought any in with her, and I don't think it would have helped anyway. I think I was too far gone within labour for it to have made any difference by the time she got here. It was that Glenn did come and sit on the sofa and hold my hand for a little part of it, and then everything kind of blurs from this point. I couldn't tell you anything in regards to time-wise as to when all of that happened, but it was then at some point Glenn wasn't holding onto my hand on the sofa. He then told me later that he was stood in that doorway because he'd gone and done something. And then, yeah, I honestly can't remember, which is a bit bad. And then, from then, I remember pushing. I remember having to push, and all of the feelings that come with that intensity of your body doing whatever your body is doing. And then one thing that the midwife actually did have to tell me was that she had to remind me to breathe and to not over push, which I'm very thankful that she did tell me to do that, and that she reminded me that my body was doing what it needed to, so don't overstrain, don't force it too much, otherwise you're going to end up hurting yourself. And she was the only midwife still at this point. It was just her. Unfortunately, her partner hadn't shown up in regards to it. I was still on my hands and knees, and then he was born at 18 minutes past 8 in the evening, bless him. And he got wrapped up in one of the towels. He was placed straight underneath me, as I kind of was, I want to say I was in shock, but I'm not sure that's what I was. But my body was just, it was shaking. It was shaking, I remember that much. So they wrapped him up in a towel, and she placed him straight through my legs on the floor in front of me so that I could see him, so that I could just take that breath and know that he was okay. And I did, and I stroked his head when I was able to. And then timing wise, I'm not sure what else was time wise from that point. However, I know that he stayed attached to me and stayed attached to the placenta for, I want to say, a good 15 minutes. And I think that I had delivered the placenta before the cord was cut, or it was that the cord was cut and then very quickly after that I did deliver the placenta. And that all happened really neatly. I remember having a conversation with the midwife, her saying, did I want the vitamin K injection for me to help me deliver the placenta? And I don't actually think I had it this time, which makes the first labour that I haven't had that shot to help me deliver the placenta, which I'm actually very proud of myself for as well. So the cord was cut. Glenn didn't cut the cord, as he didn't feel the need to. He'd cut the twins' cord, he'd cut Elena's cord. He was more just putting a hand on my back and things at this point. And I had started to move by the time the cord was cut and things, because I'd stood up to deliver the placenta, which I think actually helped me as well, being vertical instead of still on my hands and knees. And then not long after that is when the second midwife showed up, bless her heart. And it turned out that she was actually one of the midwives that had been on my home care team with the twins, which was absolutely wonderful to see her again, because she'd gone on maternity leave after the last visit that she'd had for my twins. So she was able to come back, see pictures of them, see how they'd grown up. So she helped with the twins, and then she helped with him as well, which, I repeat, all of this was just so surreal and things at that point. I was just like, I've had a boy, is where my brain was, and yes. And then from that point, the rest of the night is a bit of a blur, but it's also very dull and mundane. My bleeding started, and I think I went through about 3 pairs of disposable knickers and Lord knows how many pads just in those 2 hours that the midwives were still at my house observing and doing their paperwork and all of this. But we bundled him up, we got him dressed and sorted. I put him on boob and he had some feeds, and he was absolutely perfect. They had no worries with him at all. And when he was born, he weighed 9 pounds 2 ounces. He was my biggest baby by far. The twins were incredibly small when they were born. However, for both Adie and Allana, they weighed 7 pounds 10. Both of them did. So he definitely was my biggest baby, which, again, a rather surreal experience as well. And it was that Daddy had the first cuddle, which I know probably seems very strange, but Daddy had skin-to-skin cuddles before I did, which I honestly didn't mind. So, and it was just lovely to see. I do have a photo of Glenn holding him for the first time, which is super sweet. That was it. We had the midwives at home, and then they went home, and then he was feeding and cluster feeding very well, so we all just then went and curled up upstairs in his bed and our bed by 11 o'clock, which was amazing, and that was just after the midwives had left. Hi, I don't think I've forgotten anything. If I have, or if that you have any questions about how his birth went, then please drop me a comment down below. I would love to answer your questions if you have anything in regards to wanting to know about a home birth or anything else like that. So yes, however, any noises that you have heard in the background for the second half of this video have been the fact that my twins have woken up. So with his story said, I'm going to go and let them out. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up for me. If you are new, please consider hitting subscribe. I would love it if you stuck around so you could see how this little man grows up and everything else that goes on with our crazy life. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye everybody.